a black van, a wild plan, and 4 fugitives who could turn scrap metal into a battlefield. The A-Team made 1980s television feel explosive, but the real cast has changed in ways many never expected. Some are still here, some became legends, and others have sadly taken their final ride. In this video, we look back at the A-Team cast, then and now, in 2026. Dwight Schultz was born in 1947 in Baltimore, Maryland. He was 35 when the A-Team began, playing Captain H.M. Howling Mad Murdock, the team's gifted pilot with a mind that seemed to run on its own frequency. Murdock was impossible to predict. He could be cracking jokes, talking to an imaginary friend, or acting completely bonkers, then suddenly become the sharpest man in the room when the team needed him. Dwight made all of that madness feel surprisingly natural. His quick expressions, strange voices, and offbeat humor gave Murdock a personality unlike anyone else on American television at the time. Underneath the crazy behavior was a man the team could always trust. Put him behind the controls of a helicopter or plane, and Murdock was exactly the guy Hannibal wanted beside him. That balance between comedy, loyalty, and genuine skill turned Murdock into one of the show's real scene stealers. Even beside all that muscle and gunfire, he never had trouble getting noticed. After the A-Team, Dwight found another devoted fan base as Reginald Barclay in Star Trek. He also built a long voice acting career across animation and video games. As of 2026, Dwight is 78. He has been married to actress Wendy Fulton for many years and has 1 daughter, and lives far more quietly than during his TV heyday, while Murdock remains the character that instantly takes fans back to the wild spirit of the A-Team. Dirk Benedict was born in 1945 in Helena, Montana. He was 37 when he became Templeton Face Peck, the smooth-talking member of the A-Team who could charm his way through almost any locked door. Face was the man to call whenever Hannibal needed something that was difficult, or probably illegal, to get. Give him a smart suit, a believable story, and a few minutes, and he usually found a way. Dirk gave Face an easygoing charm that never felt forced. He could flirt his way out of trouble, bluff a suspicious guard, or talk someone into handing over exactly what the team needed. And while Face clearly enjoyed money, women, and the finer things in life, he was no coward. Once the bullets started flying, he was right there with Hannibal, B.A., and Murdock. That mix of swagger and loyalty made Face more than just the handsome guy on the team. He brought a lighter touch to the action and became a huge part of the show's chemistry. Before the A-Team, Dirk was already well known as Starbuck in the original Battlestar Galactica. He later turned to writing and even made a brief appearance connected with the 2010 A-Team film. Nowadays, Dirk is 81. He has largely stepped away from the Hollywood spotlight and spent much of his later life writing and enjoying a quieter routine. For longtime fans, though, that grin and effortless face charm are still hard to forget. Lance Legault was born in 1935 in Chicago, Illinois. He was 47 when the A-Team began, playing Colonel Roderick Decker, the hard-nosed military officer determined to put Hannibal and his men back behind bars. Decker never bought the team's Robin Hood reputation. To him, they were fugitives, plain and simple, and every new sighting meant another chance to finally bring them in. Lance was a natural fit for that kind of authority. That deep, gravelly voice and no-nonsense manner made Decker feel like a man who had spent his whole life giving orders. Whenever he showed up, you knew Hannibal's latest plan was about to get more complicated. Decker rarely smiled, rarely relaxed, and certainly never seemed amused by the team making him look foolish. That constant pursuit gave the series an extra layer of tension. He was not some cartoon villain. He was a stubborn military man doing a job and refusing to let four fugitives stay one step ahead forever. Away from the A-Team, Lance appeared in Magnum, P.I., Airwolf, and numerous films, while also working as a singer and voice actor. His unmistakable voice became a major part of his career. Lance Legault died in 2012 at the age of 77 from heart failure. He left behind his wife and 4 children, along with a long list of tough guy roles that made his face, and especially that voice, hard to forget. Melinda Culea was born in 1955 in Western Springs, Illinois. She was 27 when she joined the A-Team as Amy Amanda Allen, the newspaper reporter who gets swept into the team's dangerous world from the very first adventure. Amy, or AAA, brought something different to the original lineup. She was curious, determined, and willing to follow the guys straight into trouble if there was a story worth chasing. Melinda kept Amy grounded in a show packed with explosions, disguises, and larger-than-life personalities. She felt like the normal person standing in the middle of 4 men who operated by their own rules. She was never meant to be another B.A. or Hannibal. Amy's place was different, asking questions, making connections, and sometimes reminding the team that there was a world outside their latest crazy mission. Her run ended during the 2nd season, but longtime fans still remember Amy as an important part of the show's earliest identity. Melinda appeared in 24 episodes before leaving the series. Afterward, she worked steadily in television, appearing in Knots Landing, Family Ties, Star Trek, The Next Generation, The X-Files, and Brotherly Love. She later added author to her resume. As of 2026, Melinda is 71. She has largely stayed away from acting in recent years, with her last screen credit dating back to 2001. In 2016, she released her mystery novel One Dago, opening a very different chapter beyond Hollywood. Robert Vaughn was born in 1932 in New York City. He was 53 when he joined the A-Team in 1986 as General Hunt Stockwell, the mysterious government operative who changed the team's world during its final season. Stockwell was nothing like the officers who had spent years chasing Hannibal. Instead of simply locking the team up, he offered them a way toward a presidential pardon, provided they worked for him first. Robert brought instant weight to the role. Stockwell always seemed to know more than he was willing to say, and that cool, controlled manner made it difficult to tell whether he was helping the team or using them. His arrival also changed the flavor of the series. The old fugitives for hire setup moved closer to secret government missions, with Stockwell pulling the strings and sending the team wherever he needed them. For viewers who knew Robert's earlier work, his presence was a big deal. He already had decades of screen experience and the kind of effortless authority that made Stockwell believable from the moment he walked in. Long before the A-Team, Robert became famous as Napoleon Solo in The Man from UNCLL and appeared in classics including The Magnificent Seven and Bullitt. He later enjoyed another major TV run in Hustle. He died in 2016 at the age of 83 after battling leukemia. His career stretched across nearly 6 decades, from Hollywood films to American and British television, leaving behind far more than just one memorable general. George Peppard was born in 1928 in Detroit, Michigan. He was 54 when the A-Team began, playing Colonel John Hannibal Smith, the cigar-smoking mastermind who always seemed to have another plan ready. Hannibal was the man holding this crazy group together. Calm under pressure and usually one step ahead, he could walk into a hopeless situation looking like he already knew exactly how it would end. George gave Hannibal that old-school confidence without making him too serious. The grin, the black gloves, and that ever-present cigar became just as much a part of the character as his clever plans. Even when bullets were flying and everything looked completely out of control, Hannibal rarely seemed worried. In fact, the more impossible the job became, the more he appeared to enjoy himself. That attitude made him the perfect leader for the team. B.A. had the muscle, Face had the charm, and Murdock brought the madness. But Hannibal was the man who somehow turned all of it into a plan. Long before the series, George was already a major Hollywood star, appearing in Breakfast at Tiffany's, How the West Was Won, The Carpetbaggers, and The Blue Max. He died in 1994, at the age of 65, after battling lung cancer. His career stretched across film and television, but for millions of 80s fans, Hannibal's cigar and famous satisfied grin remain impossible to separate from the A-Team. Marla Heasley was born in 1959 in Hollywood, California. She was 24 when she became Tanya Baker, the young newspaper reporter who joined the team during the second season after Amy Allen's departure. Tanya was bright, curious, and never afraid to get involved when a story led somewhere dangerous. She brought an outsider's view to a group of men who treated explosions and car chases like an ordinary day at work. Marla kept the character light and easygoing, which worked well beside the team's much bigger personalities. Tanya could join the banter without trying to compete with Hannibal, B.A., Face, or Murdock. She also gave the series another connection to the world outside the team. While the guys were busy planning their next rescue, Tanya often felt like the person reminding us just how unusual their lives really were. Her stay was relatively short, but she still became a familiar face from the show's early years. Tanya appeared across 9 episodes before the writers sent the character off to get married. After leaving the A-Team, Marla appeared in shows including The Love Boat and Riptide, along with films such as The Marrying Man. She eventually stepped away from acting in the 1990s. As of 2026, Marla is 66. She has lived largely outside the Hollywood spotlight for many years and has been married to Christopher Harriman since 2001. For longtime fans, Tanya remains the role most closely connected with her name. Carl Franklin was born in 1949 in Richmond, California. He was 34 when he appeared as Captain Crane, one of the military officers caught up in the endless hunt for Hannibal and the rest of the fugitive team. Crane was never the loudest man in the room, but he was part of the military machine constantly trying to close in on the A-Team. Whenever the army arrived, he was often somewhere in the middle of the action. Carl kept Crane straightforward and believable, rather than turning him into another oversized villain. That worked well in a show where so many other characters were already larger than life. His presence helped keep the military pursuit feeling constant. No matter how many times Hannibal escaped, there was always another officer, another search, and another reason for the team to stay on the move. Interestingly, Carl later admitted that acting was no longer fulfilling him during this period. Captain Crane became one of his most visible roles, but his real creative breakthrough was still ahead. He eventually left acting behind and became an acclaimed director. His films include One False Move and Devil in a Blue Dress, while his television work has included major dramas across several decades. Nowadays, Carl is 77. Rather than being remembered only as Captain Crane, he built an entirely new career behind the camera and became an award-winning filmmaker, a rare second act that took him far beyond the A-Team. Tia Carrere was born in 1967 in Honolulu, Hawaii. She was 19 when she appeared as Tia Fulbright, the daughter of General Fulbright, during the 4th season finale of the A-Team. Tia enters the story carrying a lot more than teenage attitude. She has grown up in Vietnam, knows how to survive on her own, and certainly does not need the A-Team rushing in to tell her what to do. Carrere gave the character plenty of fire. Tia could be stubborn, suspicious, and fearless, But there was also a vulnerable side underneath all that toughness that made her easy to root for. She was actually being lined up to continue with the team, which could have changed the whole feel of Season 5. Her commitment to General Hospital, however, meant those plans never went ahead. So her time on the show was brief, but it left fans with one of those great what might have been stories. Tia had the attitude and energy to fit right into Hannibal's unpredictable crew. Carrere went on to much bigger fame with Wayne's World, True Lies, and Relic Hunter. She also built a successful music career and won Grammy Awards for her Hawaiian recordings. As of 2026, Tia is 59. She remains active in entertainment, with a career that has moved comfortably between acting, voice work, and music. That one-off A-Team appearance now feels like an early glimpse of the star she was about to become. Eddie Velez was born in 1958 and raised in Manhattan by Puerto Rican parents. He was 28 when he joined the final season as Frankie Dishpan Man Santana, a Hollywood special effects expert pulled into the A-Team's new adventures. Frankie was the new kid in a group that already knew each other inside out. He had technical skills, plenty of confidence, and a habit of calling Hannibal Johnny, something almost nobody else dared to do. Eddie brought a younger, streetwise energy to the team. Frankie was quick on his feet, handy with movie effects, and perfectly willing to jump into the action once Stockwell's missions started getting messy. He was never meant to replace Hannibal, Face, BA, or Murdock. Instead, Frankie added another set of skills just as the show was shifting toward bigger government operations and undercover assignments. Joining such an established cast was never going to be easy, but Frankie found his own place in that final season lineup. His Hollywood background also gave the writers plenty of room for tricks, explosions, and clever escapes. After the A-Team, Eddie continued working in television and film, with credits including Hill Street Blues, Tour of Duty, Traffic, and Hustlers. Nowadays, Eddie is 68. He has spent decades moving between acting, writing, and producing rather than chasing one defining role. Still, for 80s television fans, Frankie Santana remains one of the faces most closely tied to the show's final chapter. Tim Dunnigan was born in 1955 in St. Louis, Missouri. He was 27 when he played Templeton Face Peck in the original 1983 pilot, before Dirk Benedict took over the part for the rest of the series. His face already had the essentials: confidence, charm, and the ability to talk his way into places where the team had absolutely no business being. The blueprint was there right from the start. Tim brought a younger feel to the character, and that ultimately became the problem. Producers felt he looked too young to convincingly pass as a seasoned Vietnam veteran alongside the other members of the team. That made his appearance a true one-off. Watch the pilot today, and it can be a genuine surprise seeing another man standing beside Hannibal, BA, and Murdock as Face. Once Dirk Benedict arrived, the character developed in a different direction, but Tim remained part of A-Team history. He was there when the whole television phenomenon first got rolling. Tim later found his best-known leading role as Captain Jonathan Power in Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. He also appeared in Cheers, Silver Spoons, and several other television productions. Today, Tim is 71. He eventually left acting and worked in the mortgage business, living a much quieter life away from Hollywood. His brief turn as Face remains a fascinating bit of trivia that can still catch longtime A-Team fans off guard. Jack Ging was born in 1931 in Alva, Oklahoma. He was 53 when he became General Harlan Bull Fulbright, another military commander determined to finally put an end to the A-Team's years on the run. Fulbright came in with the same mission as the officers before him, but he felt tougher and far less willing to accept another embarrassing escape. Hannibal had finally met a man who simply would not quit. Jack already looked and sounded like someone who belonged in command. His stern face, rough voice, and military bearing gave Fulbright the kind of presence that could change the mood the second he walked into a scene. What made Fulbright more interesting was that he was not stuck in one gear. Beneath all that determination, the series slowly showed there was more to him than simply being the latest man chasing 4 fugitives. By the end of his run, Fulbright's relationship with the team had changed completely. He finally began to understand the men he had spent so much time hunting, giving the character an unexpectedly human finish. Outside the A-Team, Jack appeared in Mannix, the $6 Million Man, the Bionic Woman, and Riptide. Before acting, he also served in the U.S. Marine Corps and briefly played professional football. Jack Ging died in 2022 at the age of 90. He had retired from acting years earlier, leaving behind a long career filled with cops, soldiers, and hard-edged authority figures, the kind of roles that seemed tailor-made for him. William Lucking was born in 1941 in Vicksburg, Michigan. He was 41 when viewers first met Colonel Francis Lynch, the military officer responsible for hunting down the A-Team after their escape from prison. Lynch had one problem that followed him everywhere: Hannibal Smith. Every failed attempt to capture the team made the chase feel more personal, and his frustration only grew each time they slipped through his fingers. William made Lynch feel like a man whose pride had taken a serious beating. He could bark orders and throw his weight around, but there was always that sense that Hannibal was already several moves ahead of him. That made Lynch a perfect early opponent for the team. He was dangerous enough to keep them moving, yet his obsession with finally winning often became exactly what Hannibal used against him. Although Lynch was mainly part of the first season, he later returned for another crack at the team. By then, his failure to catch them had become almost as memorable as the chase itself. William went on to build a huge list of tough guy roles, appearing in Erin Brockovich, The Rundown, The X-Files, and many other films and television series. William Lucking died in 2021 at the age of 80. A younger generation knew him best as Piney Winston in Sons of Anarchy, proving that decades after Colonel Lynch, he could still make a rugged character feel completely believable. Red West was born in 1936 in Memphis, Tennessee. He was 46 when he appeared as Lieutenant Leo Trask, the brutal prison officer standing between the A-Team and a man they were determined to rescue. Trask was exactly the kind of guy viewers loved seeing Hannibal outsmart. Tough, intimidating, and far too comfortable throwing his weight around, he made it clear that life inside his prison ran by his rules. Red looked completely at home playing men like this. He had a naturally rugged presence, and there was nothing polished or fancy about Trask, just a hard stare and the feeling that trouble was never far away. Even though the role was brief, Red actually returned to the A-Team several times as different characters, becoming one of those familiar faces sharp-eyed fans may remember spotting again. That made him a great fit for the show's world of crooked sheriffs, heavies, and men Hannibal had to knock down a peg or two before the credits rolled. Outside acting, Red had an extraordinary life. He was a longtime friend, confidant, and bodyguard of Elvis Presley before building a career as an actor, stuntman, and songwriter. He died in 2017 at the age of 81 after suffering an aortic aneurysm. He left behind a career that stretched far beyond the A-Team, but his rough-edged screen presence was always unmistakable. Clifton James was born in 1920 in Spokane, Washington. He was 63 when he appeared as Sheriff Jake Dawson, the crooked small-town lawman the A-Team decides to expose by putting face up against him in an election. Dawson has the badge, the power, and the whole town leaning his way, which is exactly the sort of setup Hannibal cannot resist tearing apart. Clifton knew how to play a loud, blustering authority figure better than almost anyone. He could make Dawson funny one moment and genuinely unpleasant the next, without changing much more than his tone. That larger-than-life style fit the A-Team perfectly. Dawson feels like a man who has been getting his own way for years and cannot quite believe these outsiders have suddenly decided to challenge him. Clifton also appeared earlier in the series as prison warden Beale, giving him two very different corrupt authority figures during the show's first 2 seasons. Long before that, he became famous as Sheriff J.W. Pepper in 2 James Bond films. He was also a decorated World War II veteran who earned the Silver Star, Bronze Star, and 2 Purple Hearts. Clifton James died in 2017 at the age of 96. His career covered Broadway, television, and film, but those booming lawman roles became such a trademark that audiences could recognize him almost instantly. John Saxon was born in 1936 in Brooklyn, New York. He was 46 when he appeared as Martin James, the dangerous cult leader at the center of one of the A-Team's earliest missions. Martin James is the kind of villain who looks calm on the surface, but never feels safe to be around. He runs his isolated community with absolute control and expects everyone to follow his word. John brought a quiet menace to the role. He did not need to shout or throw his weight around. The steady voice, dark glasses, and cold confidence already told you this was a man used to being obeyed. That made James a strong match for Hannibal. Both men liked being in control, but only one of them was prepared for the A-Team to come crashing into his carefully ordered world. Although it was a guest role, John made the character feel bigger than a one-episode bad guy. He later returned to the series in a completely different role, something longtime fans may have spotted. Outside the A-Team, John built a remarkable career with more than 200 screen credits, including Enter the Dragon, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Falcon Crest. John Saxon died in 2020 at the age of 83 from complications of pneumonia. His career lasted more than 6 decades, and his mix of old-school Hollywood cool and tough guy presence made him instantly recognizable. Mr. T was born Lawrence Turode in 1952 in Chicago, Illinois. He was 30 when the A-Team began, playing Sergeant B.A. Baracus, the team's mechanical genius, powerhouse, and the man with absolutely no patience for fools. B.A. looked like nobody else on television. The mohawk, the gold chains, and that permanent scowl told you everything before he even opened his mouth. Mr. T brought so much of his own personality into the role that B.A. almost felt like an extension of the man himself. Tough, loud, and intimidating, but never without a softer side underneath. For all the muscle, B.A. was also the guy who could fix almost anything. Engines, vans, weapons. If Hannibal had a plan, B.A. was usually the one making sure the machinery actually worked. And then there was Murdock. Their constant bickering became one of the show's funniest running jokes, especially because B.A. could face gunfire without blinking, but hated getting on a plane. Before the series, Mr. T had already broken through as Clubber Lang in Rocky III. He later worked in wrestling, television, and reality shows, turning his larger-than-life image into a pop culture brand of its own. As of 2026, Mr. T is 74. He survived a cancer diagnosis in the 1990s and has lived a much quieter life in recent years. Even without all the gold chains, B.A. Baracus remains one of the most instantly recognizable characters of 1980s television. The mission may be over, but the team is still unforgettable. Subscribe for more classic cast updates, surprising transformations, and the TV legends we still remember.